This my reset, walking head high, that's the preset. Got the J in the chair, you can breathe it. Exhale, we gon' turn that hurt into detail. This my reset, new page, new frame, hit the refresh. If you made it to the screen, that's a big flex. Type here in the box, that's progress. That's progress. You've been carrying that weight since the group chat. Smiling in the pic, but you knew that. Heart say break, mind say keep going. Now you in the lobby and the lights start glowing. Edge laid, hoodie on, still holy. Tear stains on the sleeve, still cozy. Black girl doc with the big gold hoops. Say your name and the shame get loose. This my reset, walking head high, that's the preset. The J in the chat, you can breathe it. Exhale, we gon' turn that hurt into detail. This my reset, new page, new frame, hit the refresh. If you made it to the screen, that's a big flex. Type here in the box, that's progress. That's progress. We wave when we wade through the deep end. We brave when we break, then we deepen. You're safe in the space when you log in. Drop one word for your check-in. It's my reset, walking head high, that's the preset. The J in the chat, you can breathe it. Exhale, we gon' turn that hurt into detail. It's my reset, new page, new frame, hit the refresh. If you made it to the screen, that's a big flag. Type here in the box, that's progress. That's progress.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Reset with Dr. J. This is where we turn those W.T.F moments into breakthroughs. So this is on W.T.F Nation Radio every Sunday at noon. Whether you're locked in or you got me on in the background while you meal prep or clean or even just avoid responsibilities right now. Welcome back. Quick housekeeping before we jump in. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist. So this is a conversation, not treatment. If you're in crisis, call or text 988. They are available 24/7. The stuff that we talk about here is real and it helps. But if you're dealing with some serious stuff, get actual therapy. The show is like the appetizer that makes you realize that you may want the full meal. We good? Okay, let's go. So today we're talking about discipline, not the you just need to try harder kind of way. We're talking about what your brain actually needs to stick with things, the science of it. Why some approaches to discipline work long term and why others burn out. Because here's what I'm seeing. A lot of us are using discipline strategies that worked in one context, but our brains need something different now. And it's not about willpower. It's not about being tougher. It's about understanding how your brain actually works. And we're going to work with it instead of against it. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. J. I am a therapist. I am an Army vet, and I am going to break down the science of sustainable discipline in a way that actually makes sense. So if you have questions after this, you can email thereset@WTFnationradio.com or drop some comments in the chat and let's get to talking about this. This is going to be good. Let's get into it. All right. So let's talk about what's actually happening in the brain when you try to be disciplined. So for a lot of us, especially if you're military or first responders or you came up in some kind of structured environment, discipline was taught a specific way. You wake up at a certain time, you show up on time, you do what you're told, you meet the standards, and you don't make excuses. And that worked. In that context, it had to work, right? But here's what's happening in your brain during that kind of discipline. Your behavior is being controlled by outside forces. So you have your rules, you have your consequences, your authority figures, your structure. And so your brain is responding to do this or else. So it's meeting standard or facing the consequences. And so your brain can absolutely respond to that, and it will. But here's the thing. The system requires constant outside pressure. You need structure. You need the consequences. You need someone checking up on you. Take that away, which is what happens when you transition out of the service or from a job or whatever life, had that structure before. When you start to build your own life and you're on your own, that motivational system doesn't really have what it needs anymore. It's like trying to run a car that needs diesel on regular gas. Like the engine is still fine, but you're using the wrong fuel. And then you're out here trying to discipline yourself in the same way, and you're confused when it doesn't work. So you're trying to create your own consequences. Like, if I don't do this, then I don't know, I'll feel bad. So your brain is like, yeah, that's not really the same thing. So I'm not motivated. I'm not that motivated. So there's another way too, or like you're trying to force yourself through pure willpower, and willpower runs out. So we'll consider that a limited resource. So it's like asking your brain to do everything, and it'll handle it for a little while, but then like eventually it's like, hello, I got other stuff to manage. And so, you can push and push using willpower, but eventually you'll run out and you'll crash. So then you start to think, oh my gosh, I'm so undisciplined. I have no willpower. What's wrong with me? And let me be the first to tell you, or maybe not the first to tell you, right? But nothing's wrong with you. You're just using a system that wasn't designed for the situation that you're in now. Your brain needs different fuel. So let's talk about that. What's really happening? Let me break it down to tell you the different types of motivation. So basically, there's two systems. You have your outside control, and this is where behavior controlled by external forces, right? So this is the rules, the consequences, the authority. And if you've ever been through like a basic training, you can relate or something similar. But this lights up your brain's threat system. You do things to avoid the bad outcome, right? So it works. But you need constant outside pressure here. And it's exhausting because you're always operating from a place of threat. I can remember a time in basic as I'm talking about this. And I remember we went on this long run. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that soldier that falls out of the run. But also, I don't know where the heck we're at, and I'm not trying to get lost. So, like, when I tell you that motivated me in a way that I don't even know where that motivation came from, that was fear, okay? But that's the external. Like, I don't know what it will happen if I do not get it together. So I did. That's that external. And then you have this inside drive. And this is behavior driven by your own values of like what matters to you. So your brain's reward system is lighting up in a completely different way. You do the thing because it's connected to something you care about. It's sustainable because the motivation is coming from inside you and you don't need constant outside pressure here. But here's where it gets interesting. Your brain's reward system responds differently to these two types of motivation. So when you're controlled or when you're motivated by outside control, your brain responds by like avoiding punishment or getting the external reward. When you're motivated by the inside drive, your brain responds to meaning, purpose, and doing things that align with what you care about. And so the inside drive pathway, it's more sustainable because it's not dependent on these constant threats or external rewards. But there is a catch. You can't just force the inside drive the way that you were taught to force the external, the compliance there. You cannot threaten yourself into caring. You cannot punish yourself into being internally motivated. That's not how the brain works. But what you can do is create some conditions for internal motivation that to develop a little bit more. So you do this by connecting your actions to what you actually care about. So by paying attention to how much energy you have, by giving yourself flexibility instead of these rigid rules. And basically, what you're doing is rewiring how your brain responds. So you're training it to run on a different kind of fuel. And that takes time. It's not instant, but it does last. So outside control burns hot and fast. Inside drive builds slowly, but it sticks. So there's one more piece to this. Your brain has a part that monitors effort. So it tracks how much work something requires and whether it's worth it. And that's why they say, like, if you want to stop eating junk food, for instance, and like, let's say I have a healthy snack on my desk, but there's chips downstairs, I'm more likely to get that healthy snack because it's right here. Doesn't require a lot of effort, versus walking downstairs to get the chips. It's kind of like a brain trick here. So when you're using punishment-based discipline, this part of your brain is constantly flagging high effort, negative experience, not worth it, that type of thing. So eventually your brain is like, why are we doing this? This sucks. Let's stop. So when you're using value-based discipline, it flags high effort, meaningful experiences, they're worth it. So your brain is like, okay, this is hard, but it matters, and let's keep this going. So the same amount of effort. Completely different experiences in your brain, though. And that's why value-based discipline feels a little bit different. It's not just your mindset. Your brain is literally responding differently. So once you understand this, your brain responds differently to two types of motivation. Everything shifts. You stop thinking that you're undisciplined or that you're weak, and you realize that you're just using a motivational system that doesn't match today's situation. We were trained in outside control, most likely. And so now we're trying to build this inside drive, and those systems are different, in our brains. You cannot force the switch. You have to rewire it. You have to build the new pathways. And we're even doing that today by just sitting in this conversation. Literally rewiring discipline. So it doesn't make you tougher. It's not giving you willpower, but rewiring how your brain actually responds. And that's the shift. That's the breakthrough. So let's talk about what sustainable discipline actually looks like in the brain. First is values-based, not punishment-based. So the science is, when you use punishment-based motivation, I have to do this or I'll hate myself, you're activating that threat part of your brain. So that part of your brain lights up, your body goes into stress mode, you get the stress hormones, and you can motivate yourself short term. That works, just like the fear example I just gave you. But long term, your brain and your body can't keep that up. Constant activation of the threat system, now you're asking for burnout and anxiety and depression and whatever else comes with that. So your brain eventually is going to be like, nope, we're not doing this anymore. This is damaging. And so going to the value-based motivation works completely different. When you connect the action to your values, it's like, okay, I'm doing this because it matters to me. You're activating the meaning-making part of your brain and your reward system. So you get that hit of feel-good chemicals, not from avoiding punishment, but from moving towards something meaningful. And that's what lasts. Because rewards are from meaningful actions. They don't burn you out the same way that a threat does. So your brain is literally wired to keep doing things that connect to meaning and value. That's the first piece, the value base versus the punishment. We want to go for a value based or start to change that. Second, sustainable discipline pays attention to your capacity. It does not ignore it. So here's the science. Your self-control is limited and not infinite. So every decision that you make, every time you resist something, every time you push through, it uses up that energy. And so that part of your brain, it handles self-control. The part of your brain that handles self-control runs on fuel and it gets tired. And so when you're depleted, whether it's from stress or no sleep or too many decisions or emotional stuff, that part of your brain is running on empty. And when that happens, you default to more automatic, impulsive responses. So that's when you make that bad choice. That's when you quit. That's when you snap. And it's not because you're weak, but your self-control resources are actually depleted. And so old school discipline says, push through anyway. Ignore that. But you can't willpower your way past actual resource depletion. That's not how the brain works. So when we're talking about sustainable discipline, we're going to manage your resources. We're going to work with your capacity. Some days you're well-resourced and you can tackle hard stuff. Some days you're depleted and your capacity is lower, and it's not a failure, it's reality. And so you just adjust. What do you do that matches your actual capacity right now? That's the second piece. So capacity aware, not capacity ignoring. Okay? And the third part of sustainable discipline, make it flexible and not rigid. Rigid discipline says, this is the plan, there are no changes, do it or you failed. Flexible discipline says, this is the plan and I can adapt when life happens. Because life will happen. Your brain has the natural ability to adapt to changing circumstances. That's actual strength. Rigid discipline forces your brain into that all or nothing thinking, or sometimes we call it black or white thinking, whether it's, perfect or failure. A flexible discipline uses your brain's adaptive capacity to adjust and keep going. And that's what we want. Being flexible while staying committed to what matters. That's actually harder than just being rigid. Rigid is easy. Follow the rules or don't. But flexible says, okay, I gotta think, I gotta assess, I gotta adjust while staying focused on my goals. But it's more sustainable. Because when circumstances change, rigid breaks, but flexible adapts. So that's the third piece. Flexible, not rigid. Okay? So, where does the punishment-based, capacity-ignoring, rigid show up? An example. So you decide you're going to get in shape and you make this plan. Gym every day at 5 a.m. Strict eating, no exceptions. Day 1, you crushed it. Your brain gets a reward, you feel good. Day 2, same, momentum building. Day 3, you sleep through your alarm. Now here's where this matters. The all or nothing thinking. My plan failed. I might as well just quit. So your brain flags high effort, failure, not worth it. And then you quit. And it's not because you're undisciplined. But your brain has interpreted one deviation as a complete failure. And that's where the flexible thinking is key. Okay, I missed this morning. I can go this afternoon. Or even if I skip today, I can go tomorrow. And so the pattern changes. Your brain stays focused on what matters. One deviation is just a data point. I need to adjust and continue. For that example, maybe I need more than one alarm. Maybe I need to make sure it's loud. Maybe I need to tell Alexa, to come on or something. I can make an adjustment and continue. So the same situation, completely different brain response. All or nothing creates a very fragile system. Like when one thing breaks, the whole thing breaks. But flexible is resilient. It's like, okay, one thing broke, but I can adjust and I can keep moving. And there's a difference there. So here's another one. The punishment spiral. You mess up. You eat wrong. You skip the workout. You don't follow through. The punishment response, your brain activates shame. The threat response plus judgment. Stress hormones flood your system. You feel terrible. And shame doesn't motivate change. It actually makes your thinking worse. So when you're in that shame way of thinking, you can't plan well, and you can't think clearly, and you can't do the kind of thinking that leads to actual change. So then you just end up feeling like garbage, and you're less able to figure out what to do differently. And so it becomes a spiral. When you switch to value-based response, we have curiosity instead of shame. Okay. Didn't follow through. What happened? What can I learn? Problem solving mode instead of self-attack mode. So it's no stress dump, no spiral. You're just collecting the information. You're learning, you're adjusting. And the brain stays functional and is able to make those changes. And that's how you build the lasting change. Okay. Last one. The capacity crash. So this is where you push and you ignore the signals that you are depleted. Your body says you're tired, you're stressed, you need rest. And you say, nah, I'm gonna push through. What's happening is that your brain, your thinking gets less fuel, less resources. It can't function at full capacity. I know for myself, after a heavy therapy day, I know exactly what that feels like. My brain is not working at full capacity. I don't want to make one more decision. Somebody might ask, well, what do you want to eat? I don't know because I just don't have it in me, And so like your stress response is chronically on, you're running on stress hormones. Your rest system never activates because you don't need rest, And so your body forces it. You crash, you get sick, you burn out. And none of that equals weakness. It's just because you ran the system past its limits. So think about, when you see that showing up for yourself. I know I can get into my entrepreneur mode I can go pretty hard. But then when I start to like get sick or something, I'm like, oh, usually I can look back and think like, oh yeah, I definitely pushed it. I definitely overdid it. So I tell everybody this, including myself. Rest is part of the process. Recovery is when your brain actually builds those new pathways. So we need that. You don't build muscle during the workout, you build it during the recovery, right? So the same with discipline, practice and recovery. And that's how the brain works. All right. So if sustainable discipline is about rewiring how your brain responds, how do you actually do it? Let's get into that. So I have 3 tools for you here today. And these are powerful practices that work with your brain and not against it. So it's not about willpower. It's about training your brain to run on that right fuel that we talked about. So I would like to say that, we can master these and everything else flows, but, we'll just try it. So the first tool is the values anchor. This is the foundation. This is how you rewire from the punish-based to the value-based. And without this, nothing else sticks. So this is really a game changer. What are you going to do? You're going to identify 3 to 5 things that actually matter to you. And it helps if, it helps if you write this down too. So, Not what should matter, right? What does matter. Health, family, growth, freedom, creativity, service, connection, whatever's real for you. Write those down. Take your time. If it takes you a little bit of time to figure it out, that's fine. Even if you can just come up with one, I recommend 3 to 5. When you name something as important, you're telling your brain, hey, pay attention to this. Step 2, for each value, you're going to define 1 or 2 actions that show it. So if you care about health, maybe moving your body and getting some sleep. If you care about family, maybe being present and showing up for the important moments. If you care about growth, maybe learning something new or trying hard things. Be specific. When you connect action to value, you're creating a link in your brain between that behavior and your reward system. Excuse me, I have to sneeze, but it won't come out. That's annoying, especially while you're trying to talk. So, we're human, so y'all know what that feels like. All right. Don't feel a sneeze. Gonna go on to step 3. Step 3. Before you do the action, state the connection. So this is the rewiring here. Before you work out, I'm doing this because I care about my health. Before you put your phone away to be with family, I'm doing this because I value being present with my people. And the statement activates the meaning part of your brain, and it primes your reward system to respond to the meaningful action. So you're training your brain to connect. This action equals values assignment, which equals reward. Over time, that pathway will get stronger and stronger, and it will become automatic. Step 4, notice how it feels. Take 5 seconds after completing this action and notice, how does it feel to have done something that aligns with what matters? That moment of noticing reinforces that pathway. So your brain learns the action, values, good feeling, do more. And now there's the loop, the learning loop. Try it. Try it for 2 to 3 weeks. At first, it might seem very forced, like you're just saying words. But around the 2 to 3 week, usually something shifts. And the action actually starts to feel like you're less like you're forcing something and more like you're just taking care of something that matters. And that's your brain rewiring. So the effort level feels different because your brain is responding to meaning instead of threat. So let's say you value health. You've been trying to work out consistently. It's the old way. I have to work out, or I'll hate myself, or I'm lazy if I don't. And that's threat-based. It activates stress. You feel terrible, burnout. The new way, before the workout, I say, all right, I'm doing this because I value taking care of my body and having energy for my life. Okay. So after you notice, that felt good. I'm someone who takes care of what matters. And the meaning-based shows up. The activates the reward system. It feels purposeful. It lasts. Same workout, complete different brain experience. And that is the values anchor. That is the foundation for everything else. Another tool is the capacity dial. This is how you work with your brain's actual energy instead of pretending that it's infinite. This is what prevents the crash. So here's the practice. Every morning, check in. What's my capacity today? Scale of 1 to 10. And just be honest. Not what you wish it was. What it actually is. What affects capacity, right? So sleep affects it. Did you get a good amount of sleep. I don't know. People say 7 to 8 hours, but I'm like, busy adults, I will give you, did you get 6 hours? We'll be flexible with that too. The goal would be 8, right? But did you get at least 6? Because your brain needs to sleep to refuel. Stress. How are you dealing with your stress? Because that drains your resources. Decisions. How many decisions have you made today? Because each one of those uses energy. Emotions. Are you processing difficult feelings? That takes brain power. So all these affect how much you have to give. And so I would say if you're doing that check-in, high capacity be like 7 to 10, where you're well rested, low stress, you're feeling good, you can tackle challenging stuff. I would say medium capacity is like a 4 to 6. You got some energy, but it's not full. You can do important stuff, but you got to be strategic. And then low capacity would be like a 1 to 3, where you feel depleted and you're running on fumes and you need to conserve and you need to rest. So the key is you're going to match your execution to your capacity. That's the dial. So you're turning it up or you're turning it down depending on what your actual resources are. So if you have a high capacity day, full execution, do the challenging workout, tackle the hard tasks, push yourself. If you're having a medium capacity day, modified execution, do the moderate version, handle the essentials, save energy where you can. If you're having a low capacity day, minimum execution, do the bare minimum. That's moving your body, drinking some water, resting, making sure you're not ill, or taking care of yourself if you are. Rest as much as possible, and that's critical. The minimum version still counts. Your brain does not care if you did the full workout or the 10-minute walk. It just cares that you moved, and that reinforces the pattern. So here's an example. Let's talk about a health habit. Let's go back to health. High capacity. That would be like the 60-minute full workout. You're going all in, you're going hard. The medium capacity would be like a 30-minute moderate workout. The low capacity, maybe that's that 10-minute walk. And now this is going to look different for everybody. I'm just giving an example here. Work tasks. High capacity means, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours deeply focused in work. Medium capacity might be, okay, I'm going to spend 45 minutes focused at work. Low capacity, I'm going to spend 15 minutes and I'm going to just handle the essentials. And again, that will look different for everybody. I'm just giving an example so you can wrap your head around it. What was the other example? Oh, family time. High capacity, you are fully engaged, having this whole evening together. Medium capacity, we're going to spend 30 minutes uninterrupted quality time. Low capacity, I'm going to have a 10-minute check-in with each person because I'm sick or something like that. You always have the option. You always have an option that matches your capacity. So you're never in a position where it's do the full thing or nothing. And that's what we're trying to train our brains to think a little bit differently. So the science of why this works, when you work with your capacity, you prevent your depletion. You're not constantly draining the tank. 2, you're maintaining the pattern. You stay in the game, even on the hard days. And then 3, you build resistance. So your capacity actually increases over time when you manage it well. When you ignore it, though, you can expect crash because you deplete yourself completely. 2, breaking the pattern. You're out for days or weeks. And 3, you lose ground. You have to start over completely or repeatedly. So that capacity management is strategic. It's the difference between sprinting until you collapse versus pacing yourself to finish that marathon. So check it. That's the dial, the turn it up or turn it down, if you can imagine a dial. Keep showing up. And then the last thing, the third tool, the weekly audit. This is how you continuously improve. So how you learn what works and what doesn't. Without this, you can just repeat patterns without learning from them. And so this is how, and you probably do some of this already, but I just want to map it out for those who don't, or those that could use a reminder. So this is how you get better over time. Once a week, same day, same time, do a 15-minute audit. I don't know, every Sunday when I watch the reset at 12, I'm going to do a 15-minute audit afterwards. So, Sunday evening or something, Monday morning, it doesn't matter. Pick what works for you. Put it on your calendar. Make it non-negotiable. Ask yourself 3 questions. Question number 1, what worked this week? What did you do that felt good? What moved you forward? What aligned with your values? And I recommend writing it down, even just the small stuff, especially the small stuff, actually. Maybe you worked out twice. Maybe you had dinner with the family 3 times. Maybe you did your values practice, for 4 days. Whatever worked, just acknowledge it. This is reinforcing the pathways in the brain. And this is what we want to get into the habit of, and noticing and celebrating what worked. And you're telling your brain, hey, do more of this. Question number 2, what didn't work? Where did you struggle? Where did the plan break down? What got in the way? And critical, no judgment here. You're not beating yourself up. This is gathering data. Maybe you planned 5 workouts, but only did 2. What happened? Were you too ambitious? Was it your capacity was lower than you expected? What happened in life? Maybe you wanted to do the values activity every day, but you only did it twice. Did you forget? Was it forced? Did you need a better trigger to remember? It's just information. We're not shaming here. And question number 3, what am I adjusting for the next week, right? This is important that we keep track, because then we don't have to go like weeks without being mindful. Now we're like, okay, what are we adjusting for the next week so I can get better and better? So based on what you learned, what are you changing? Maybe you're lowering the bar. Instead of 5 workouts, you're going to do 3, because 3 is doable. Maybe you're adding support, putting your workout stuff out the night before so you don't forget. Maybe you're being more realistic about capacity. You're building in more recovery time. Whatever the thing is, just make the adjustment. Write down the plan for the next week, based on what you learn. Why this works is because your practice builds your ability to observe and adjust your own behavior. Most people just repeat the same patterns over and over again, and they never step back to ask, is this working? What could I do differently? And this weekly audit forces that reflection. Over time, you get really good at noticing patterns, identifying what's working, adjusting what's not, and continuously improving. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to get 1% better each week. And 1% better every week for a year, that's 52% better. That's massive. So this audit is how you build that improvement. 15 minutes a week, same day, same time. That's what works for most. Adjust it as needed. But celebrate what worked, learn from what didn't, and adjust for the next week. That's sustainable discipline, and that's how you actually build something that lasts. Okay. So, 3 tools that will transform how you approach discipline. Let's recap. We have tool number 1, the values anchor, and that is rewiring from punishment to purpose, connecting every action to what matters. Number 2, the capacity dial. So you're going to work with your actual energy. High capacity equals full execution. Low capacity equals minimum execution, and always have an option. And 3, the weekly audit. You're going to reflect and you're going to improve. What worked, what didn't, what am I adjusting? Sound familiar? It's like an AAR for my military folks. Okay, so these 3 work together. The values anchor gives you the why and what makes it sustainable. The capacity dial keeps you from crashing. And the weekly audit helps you to continuously improve. So these three things, once you master these three, discipline stops being about forcing yourself. And it becomes about building something that aligns with who you want to be. So as always, I throw a lot of things out there because I know you can hit pause and you can go back and listen and you can take what you need and leave what you don't. But I always want to tell you to pick one thing to start this week or try this week or revamp this week if you're already doing these things. But if you're struggling with motivation, start with the values anchor. If you're constantly burning out, start with the capacity dial. See where you're at, what needs to be changed. If you keep repeating the same mistakes, start with that weekly audit. Pick one. Do it consistently for 7 days. The reset is on Sundays at 12. Use that as your check-in. If you have questions, if you're struggling, shoot me an email, thereset@WTFnationradio.com. Let me know. And if it's an emergency, always use 911, mental health, 988. So let's bring it home. We talked about why the discipline we learned the outside control, the threat-based, rigid, doesn't work for the life that we're building right now. So our brains need different fuel. Real sustainable discipline is value-based. It's not the punishment-based. So we're moving toward what matters and not away from what we fear. Capacity aware, not capacity ignoring. So we're working with our actual energy, not pretending like it's infinite because it's not real. And then flexible, not rigid. We're adapting while staying committed, not breaking when things change. And you build it with the 3 tools that we talked about. The values anchor, which connects actions to what matters. The capacity dial, which matches execution to energy. And the weekly audit, which makes you reflect and improve. So these are not mindset tricks, they're actual brain rewiring practices. So pick one. Start this week, build from there. You're not trying to be perfect. We are never trying to be perfect. These are to build new pathways, and that takes time. So challenge yourself. Pick one tool, use it for 7 days. You got this. And just pay attention. Notice when you're using values versus punishment. Notice when you're working with those within your capacity, versus ignoring it. And notice when you're able to be a little flexible and not just this rigid. That noticing, that's your brain learning. And then let me know. Tell me, what tool did you try? What did you notice? What shifted? You got the email, the reset at WTFnationradio.com, or just leave it in the comments because that's also how you build connections. Somebody else might be like, oh shoot, I tried that too. I genuinely want to hear from you. Your experience helps me make the show better. So tell me also what you might want the next episode to be about. And we'll go from there. Thanks for being here for episode 3. If you've been struggling with discipline, I need you to hear this. You are not undisciplined. You're not weak. You do not lack willpower. You're using a system that doesn't match your situation. We learned outside control for a structured environment. We are now trying to build inside drive for our own lives. Those are different systems, different brain pathways, and you cannot force the switch. You have to rewire it. So build the new pathways, train your reward system, work with your brain's biology, and that's how we build discipline that actually sticks. Not through punishment, grinding, or work. We're going to work with how your brain actually functions. So that's the mission. Resilience is not optional, it is the mission. And sustainable discipline, that's how we execute without destroying ourselves in the process. If you need more support, reach out, 988 for crisis, or find a therapist who gets it. I can also help with that. Getting help isn't weak, it's strategic. I'm Dr. J. This is the reset. Catch you next time. Keep going, keep building, keep showing up. You got this. This is the reset with Dr. J, where we take those WTF moments and turn them into breakthroughs.
This my reset, walking head high, that's the preset. Got the J in the chair, you can breathe it. Exhale, we gon' turn that hurt into detail. This my reset, new page, new frame, hit the refresh. If you made it to the screen, that's a big flex. Type here in the box, that's progress. That's progress. You've been carrying that weight since the group chat. Smiling in the pit, but you knew that. Heart say break, mind say keep going. Now you in the lobby and the lights start glowing. Edge laid, hoodie on, still holy. Tear stains on the sleeve, still cozy. Black girl doc with the big gold hoops. Say your name and the chain get loose. This my reset, walking head high, that's the preset. The J in the chat, you can breathe it. Exhale, we gon' turn that hurt into detail. It's my reset, new page, new frame, hit the refresh. If you made it to the screen, that's a big flex. Type here in the box, that's progress. That's progress. We wave when we wade through the deep end. We brave when we break, then we deepen. You're safe in the space when you log in. Drop one word for your check-in. It's my reset, walking head high, that's the preset. The J in the chat, you can breathe it. Exhale, we gon' turn that hurt into detail. It's my reset, new page, new frame, hit the refresh. If you made it to the screen, that's a big flex. Type here in the box, that's progress.